Introducing Minor Wisdom Quintet.
One, two, a skidoo-doo-doo.
Minor Wisdom.
With the sultry sounds of my daughter coloring in the background, it's another week of Minor Wisdom, this week with Jacob Layton, who is in Bastrop ISD. He's been on the podcast before, but this time it's just him at TETA. He actually wanted to sit down and discuss wrestling, but we tied it into theater and everything that is theater, and this was, again, over a month ago now, but we just wrapped up a big wrestling event in Saudi Arabia. Crown Jewel, and I know a lot of you don't listen to this to listen to wrestling stuff, but here's the thing. I've asked in the past to send me some feedback, send me what you want to hear and all that kind of stuff, and this podcast is small, it's niche, it's Texas theater teachers, and then it's the ones that are hip to the idea of podcasts, so it's even more niche to that, because there are a lot of we'll say older generation folk that don't even know you can listen to music and stuff on your phone. But anyway, I digress. Enough of that soapbox. But Jacob wanted to talk about wrestling, and so I just sure, let's do it. But we tied it into theater. We tied it into a lot of stuff that is relevant to those listeners. There's that cough in the background. It is that season because the weather is a-changing. It's getting cold outside. And it's actually really nice. The fall weather is really, really cool. Thanks for those of you that bought Minor Wisdom shirts. Said it's closed for now. We'll see if we open that back up in the future. It was a huge, not great moneymaker. But anyway, leave a review on iTunes or wherever you listen. 5 stars if you like it. Send me an email, minorwisdompod@gmail.com, to let me know what your thoughts are. You can be mean. I'm a theater teacher. We were born and raised to be told how to do things different. So that's just the lifestyle we live in. Had a haunted house this week. Very successful haunted house. Those are always so much fun. The kids love that stuff because it, as one of the parents said, and an AP, it's very demonic. And I'd tell them that the kids decided on that stuff. And it's letting out some weird feelings that they might have towards the world with their demonic ways. Follow me on Twitter, Minor Wisdom Pod, at Minor Wisdom Pod. I already gave you the email. Ladies and gentlemen, this week's Groaner joke.
How does the ocean say bye to the seal? He waves.
I didn't know that you were a wrestling fan.
Yes.
Until after the fact.
Yeah.
But, we didn't sit and talk about that stuff.
That conversation really did get kind of truncated because there was a lot,
there were other people there.
Well, not only that, but we ended up going on a 30-minute tangent about something that had literally nothing to do with anything.
Right. And also we didn't like the people we were with, so it was we were just trying to play to their egos.
Humor, of course.
Yeah, humor them. So now, a question that I've asked, I've talked, I think, to Jay Thomas about this, about how wrestling has affected his life in theater.
Right.
And even vice versa. Maybe, because I was watching wrestling when I was 5. I can remember watching it.
That would have been early 90s?
No, thank you, but no, it was 87.
Okay. So then right around WrestleMania 3, 4.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
Andre
it was
Hulk.
still really young. SummerSlam hadn't even come out yet.
Gotcha.
SummerSlam 88 was the first one. So it was, everything was still pretty dang new.
Yeah.
Go talk to Alicia. She's got them all now. Don't interrupt again, Philip Taylor.
It's all about the studio. But of course.
Actually, we're talking about wrestling. If you have any input on
that.
It's pronounced wrestling.
Yeah,
down here. But it was. I knew that before I got into theater, but I think that made me like theater more because my dad ruined it for me by telling me that, wrestling, and I understand now as a parent why he did this.
Yeah.
Because my daughter beats the crap out of me all the time, and she knows that it has to be, it's only on Daddy. Like, it's only
Right,
Daddy
of
that she
course.
can punch and, like, pretend to wrestle
Yeah.
and stuff. She can't go to second grade class and try to beat up the kids, although I do have
Right.
a funny story about that. But, so my dad told me, this is fake. It's they know what they're doing. They're more gymnasts and athletes,
Yeah.
and rather than actually angry at each other,
Yeah.
mind you. Then later on, you come to find out that there were some guys that, Brett and Sean didn't
A
actually
lot of heat there.
like each other in the '90s and stuff like that. So anyway, I always use wrestling in my classes. Always. Like, we just did
Right.
a promo lesson
Oh, dude,
about
that's
how I
so
showed
good.
them. It wasn't anything famous, but I showed them the Hard Times promo
Okay.
from Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah.
And I showed them just a random Ultimate Warrior, just him breathing and
Yeah,
just saying random stuff.
Where everyone, you can't really tell, but you really know that he's like on something because he's lost his mind.
Yeah. And I showed them the Austin 316 one, where that came about at King of the Ring, and then just a random Hulk Hogan one. And so what the lesson ended up being was which one was telling a story,
Right,
which one grabbed you because you related to it. And of course, everybody said Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah.
Because that was he was literally talking about his father, the son of a plumber and son of a plumber. And they agreed that Hulk Hogan's was the least storytelling because all he said was the stereotypical, "I'm coming for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you." And these 24-inch pythons and take your vitamins. I'm going to get you. It's like, well, why should we care if you're going to beat him up?
Yeah. And it's crazy too because that at the time was the wrestler that everyone connected to. Everybody loved Hogan, and
he was a cartoon character.
yeah, and
same with Ultimate Warrior, but
yeah. But you look at Dusty. Dusty literally is an everyman. Like, there's nothing. I mean, he's a fantastic. He had a whole lot of charisma. He was obviously enough of an athlete to compete. But what made Dusty so great was his ability to have such strong character-driven choices.
And he did that promo in a suit, in a three-piece suit. So not that we are all walking around with three-piece suits on, unless you're Brad Cummins, but but I think that's another relatable thing. He's not wearing this ripped up yellow and red shirt, which again I think the kids loved Hulk Hogan because he was this over the top, and he's still that way.
Yeah, larger than life. Really.
Larger than life kind of guy, and Dusty was larger than life too, but he was fat.
Yeah.
he had a horrible speech impediment. He sounded like us from the South.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you figure in, like, what I love about and what I feel like wrestling now has kind of gotten away from is the ability of all of them, whether, and promos obviously are a huge part of it, but the ability of all of them to be able to tell a story in the ring. And, you look at Hogan for, here in the last 5 or 6 years, a lot of stuff's been found out about him, but really not the best person. Right. But he got in the ring, and even as this larger than life, over the top character, the common heel face dynamic. He's down, he's out, and then he's hulking up, and everyone loses their minds. They told really, really impressive stories, and now I think what you're seeing a lot more with wrestling is you're seeing a lot more sort of either not necessarily technique driven, but it's a lot of flash, which I think is a nice comparison to what you see in theater a lot now. Is like maybe I would even say partly in one act play a lot that happens a lot is this
cover up.
You cover up the ability to tell a story because everyone's looking at the spectacle. And I think it's great. You've got wrestlers now like Ricochet, like Tyler Bate, a lot of these really young guys who can, flip off the top rope 2 or 3 times, land on someone. It's this, these crazy, intense athletic moves. But one of the counterpoints to that is, what story are you telling? Is there a story that needs to be told in the ring anyway?
Yeah.
And one of the cool things about wrestling is that it can be all of those things.
Yeah.
It can be this, technique-driven match where you've got these 2 great mat wrestlers who are amazing at, holds and submissions and grapples, and then you've got these other wrestlers who are like really great at, really great high flyers, and then you've got wrestlers who just tell a great story in the ring.
Yep.
And for me, what's most compelling, and I love the super high flying stuff, but what's most compelling for me is my ability to follow the story of a match just like I can follow the story of a play.
Yeah.
And I think in that regard it is very similar to what we do because you know, it's easier now, I think, to mask your ability to tell a story with spectacle.
Yep.
And I think it's the same with what you see with wrestlers in the ring. And so what drew me when I was young was I hit wrestling right at the time that Austin 316 was huge, that The Rock was huge. I actually spine busted a kid in 6th grade. It didn't go well. I got sent to detention, but you know, there were, again, these larger than life personas who could tell these amazing stories in the ring. And you could even look at WCW. I'm just talking about WWE. You've got, you know, DDP who was doing amazing
WCW
things.
did the Flash before.
Yeah, well, they had the
WWE
cruiserweights.
did. Yeah, they did the cruiserweights, and they would always, and even Bischoff will talk about this on his podcast about how they would put them at those hour breaks, and because that made more people watch because it was just so flashy. It was just so spectacular, unbelievable stuff that it garnered more of a crowd.
Yeah, and you could use that to pull in for the next hour.
Trap them in. Now, so and this is often a tangent about wrestling, but like I think the storytelling element today does lack. But again, I think because now my 7-year-old daughter looks forward to, and it's going to change literally next week.
Yeah.
And I don't know when this podcast will come out, but it might have already changed. But with now we're going to have Monday night, 2 shows Wednesday night.
Yeah.
I'm not counting TNA. So a TNA show Tuesday, which I don't watch TNA. But
they're actually doing really great.
Yeah,
story-wise, I would say of the 3 big companies now, AEW, TNA, and WWE, TNA's probably got the best storytelling right now. And so if you're interested in that more,
even over NXT, you think?
Well, okay. I lump. As long as Vince doesn't touch NXT, I think NXT is going to continue to do amazing things. I'm curious to see what I haven't watched the live show yet, but I'm curious to see what.
I mean, it was good, but and I watched Wednesday too.
Okay.
But and then Friday you're gonna have public television, not cable anymore.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't have to have cable to watch WWE, which is insane.
Yeah.
The last time I remember it being on regular television was Univision, because that's before I had cable. That was the only way I could watch Monday Night Raw.
Right.
Was I had to watch the Spanish version and the abbreviated Spanish version.
Right.
And I got what was going on because they were telling stories.
Yeah.
You could tell what was happening. But now, and like I was saying to the point earlier, I figured out that, because I like Braun Strowman. I hate that Braun Strowman does 3 moves, and he does them every match. He's the new Hulk Hogan in that regard. It's like, you know, these 3 things are going to happen. And as an adult, I'm like, this is so annoying. Like, why can't you show some versatility, blah, 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 blah. But then as a kid, the kid in their mind, in their underdeveloped brain, they're thinking, I want to see these things that I'm used to seeing because it makes me feel, I don't know if comfortable is the right word, but it makes me feel good about it. The expectation is there. Yeah. And then they say, because my daughter's obsessed with Bailey right now, doesn't really understand that she's not a good person. She's a heel right now.
Yeah.
Because of the way she's speaking, it sounds to a kid like she's still Bailey.
Yeah, still a good
even
guy.
though she's not good.
Yeah. That's a really funny heel turn.
Yeah, she wants a shirt. She wants Bailey stuff. And so I'm like, oh, this is the formula that they've been running for years. For 30 years they've been doing this, where they're counting on the little kids saying to mommy and daddy, I want that, because that's where their money's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, that's what made Cena so popular for so long.
Sure, the adults, you know, and I have some shirts, you know, I have an NWO shirt and all that kind of stuff. You know, the adults do buy some stuff, but they're not buying, the majority of the adults are not buying all these pieces of WWE merchandise.
Right.
They might go buy themselves a title belt, which is always kind of funny to see these people walk up to a wrestling event with one, but other than that, they're not buying the figures as much. You know, there are obviously handfuls of those, but they're just not buying the little trinkets. They're not walking into a Target and taking it off the shelf. So I get the formula. It annoys the crap out of me that I'm still watching AJ Styles, one of the best in the business right now, if not the best at telling a story. It still annoys me that he's got to hit these high spots that you expect from him. It's like, if it was up to him, he might just wrestle a match. And if it calls for that high spot, if Rey Mysterio, when he Hurricane Rana's the guy into the rope and does the 619, you're like, come on, I know that, dude, you're better than this. You've been literally wrestling since you were 16, like on television. But anyway, it just bothers me. Tying that to theater.
Yes.
When they came out with Black Annie, and they came out with some of these shows where females are playing males and vice versa, right. the non-traditional way of doing things, where a crowd's showing up and they want to see this little pale white girl with a red curly wig and a red dress, and then they change it up to a little black kid. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. No. I love that stuff. I think that's how you tie it into theater. It's like, change it up a little bit, man. Refresh it a little bit. So,
do you think that it's hard to do that because even theater now is so financially driven? And wrestling, in this case, wrestling, right? Because it is so financially driven, you have to put these things out there. Otherwise,
so it depends on who you're catering to. Because if you're catering to guys like you and me. When they did that a couple months ago, when Strowman tackled Lashley through the LED board,
that was such a cool spot.
Like there were moments during that kind of almost 20-minute segment that you're like, this kind of feels a little real. You know, like I know that because of sparks and this and that, but it there was like that, like, this kind of feels like, I don't know. I know that was probably supposed to happen, that they went through that, but something doesn't feel like it should be where it is now. Like, they did that spot, but why are they still laying there? It's 15, 20 minutes later. Usually they just move on because they're just about content driven. But then they do this crap with Roman Reigns and these weird camera angles and the trussing falling on him. Yeah. And you're like, oh, okay, we're back.
Well, but even in that,
and then he gets up and doesn't even.
Yeah, but like even with that though, and that was such a ridiculous storyline. Like, on its face, it was such a ridiculous storyline. But I think that's the other part of WWE or wrestling in general. Like, you see this, like, super, like you said, I think something that kind of blurs the line between reality and kayfabe, and then you see things.
But that's for the adults.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you see things like a whodunit of who's trying to hurt Roman Reigns. In that same episode, you've got there was some really bad humor that WWE has tried that will cater to a different portion of the audience, and so it's. What I like about it, and I'm kind of going around in circles here, but what I really like about it is that not just WWE, but there are products that will cater to specific types of wrestling fans. Like,
well, yeah, I don't think AEW is catering to kids.
No, not at all. I mean, they just got they're coming in at TV 14, so they're going to be a little more edgy. But then you've got like, I'm not a deathmatch guy, but I know guys. I have friends who are like huge deathmatch guys and who want to watch things like CZW. And Japanese death matches. I have,
which has been around for much longer than anybody realized it's been around.
I'm a huge fan of NJPW, and like the match quality is really, really high. Promos not necessarily important, but the storytelling in those matches is going to be higher quality than, say, WWE. And so there definitely is, and then you've got wrestlers like what's his name? There's a wrestler that goes by Cheeseburger who's literally just a whole comedy gimmick. Like, his whole thing is a comedy gimmick.
Well, and Orange Cassidy?
Oh, dude, okay. We're going to talk about Orange Cassidy. This is a guy who has literally taken who puts in the least amount of work to get a gimmick over. Yeah. And it's honestly, if outside of maybe Luchasaurus, probably the most over gimmick in AEW right now. And it's just a guy with his hands in his pockets who doesn't care.
Jean jacket.
Yeah. My favorite thing,
sunglasses that stay on when he does stuff.
When he did the suicide dive through the ropes, hands in his pocket, and then kipped up out of it. Yeah. It's like, that's cool.
Oh, he's an athlete. Yeah, no, too. He's.
What's really cool is if you go back and watch some of the stuff he's done with some of the little indies, he's like that for the first maybe 10 minutes of the match. Yeah. And then I think, like, within the context of the match, you see the storytelling change, which, like, okay, I actually do need to give a damn about what I'm doing. Right. And the guy can go. The guy can seriously go. Yeah. But again, I think if I were to try to pull that gimmick off, in order to make that gimmick work, to make any of those gimmicks work, you have to have the ability to back it up.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, I think, what makes him so great is he's totally nonchalant, totally doesn't care about the fact that he's in the ring.
Yeah.
And then, when push comes to shove, the guy's probably one of the better wrestlers in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a definite athlete. And
Yeah.
I know this is going to sound creepy, but I've seen him without a shirt on, and he's like, the guy's jacked. So, he cares. So, how do you think this Wednesday night thing is going to work out?
I think the people who stand to benefit the most is the audience, because right now, and with NXT doing what it's doing, trying to compete with AEW or squash AEW before it even gets started.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you've seen the card for this coming week, but it's a stacked card for NXT.
Yeah, for NXT. Yeah.
You've got an NXT title match this week.
Yeah.
You've got a women's title match this week. I think Rhea Ripley's fighting Shayna Baszler this week. So that's going to be a huge match. And then you've got just like in all the way down the card, like, we're going to do everything we can to pull your eyes away from AEW.
And that's the thing, is like NXT is the TV 14 version of WWE's product.
Yeah.
They're not super risque. They're not freaking gimmick chair shots, or apparently gimmick chair shots like to Cody's head, but they're the more risque version of the WWE product, I think. SmackDown, I think SmackDown's going to venture down that road a little more. That's why they brought Bischoff in to kind of do a little bit of that. But it'll be interesting to see the channel flipping and how this works.
Yeah.
I'm more inclined to watch just now because that's the other thing about the NXT product. It's all going to be then put onto the network. So you don't have to even think about recording, quote unquote, or DVRing the NXT show, because you know that either 24 or 48 hours later, it's going to be put on the network for you to fast forward, for you to, bump through what you don't want to see. But the AEW product is not. It's
like you have to get your eyeballs on it live.
And so I think there's also a different mentality, because AEW is going to be worried about television ratings, because that's all they are right now.
Yeah.
So whereas WWE can measure their success on the number of clicks and where the people are going on their website. And I would venture to guess that AEW would get there eventually. I think that they're going to eventually go online and do more stuff, which they are kind of through Bleacher Report and through, what was it, Fight TV?
They just finished the international deal for Fight TV.
Yeah. So, there'll be some of that clicking. But, we'll see how this Wednesday night thing goes.
Okay, so would you say that wrestling as a product pulls you more into theater, or do you definitely see them as two separate things?
Pulls me as a teacher, it's one and the same to me. When I was, and it's funny because now that, again, my 7-year-old watches this stuff and is excited about it, one of my best friends, who is a huge wrestling nerd, but he's a wrestling historian, doesn't really watch the product that much now, but he knows, like, if you were like, hey, who was the main event in Saturday night's main event in 1993 in November, the third week, he'd be like, oh, come on, those $1 Million Man, he's just like, shut up, man. Like, nobody cares about that. He does that stuff. But he said, man, you are really raising your kid to be a loser, just like you, amongst all of her friends when she's at school. And I was like, yeah, but, I have charisma. People like me. But I kind of went around the topic, but again, seeing it through her eyes is part of, and I keep talking about Ava like that, but she, I think it helps her theatrically speaking. She's the product of two theater teachers, so she was going to be theatrical anyway.
Right.
But she, since she started watching, has a little bit of more of this like weird confidence about her, the way she can talk to somebody and like present an idea to somebody, because she's been watching how these women are selling how they're going to go about beating you for the title, and how there's this weird like confidence builder that wrestling, I guess, gives you, that I personally do see happening, and And I see it with even in my classes with doing this promo thing. I had a couple kids get up there that at first, they're very apprehensive because I do it with theater ones.
Right.
My tech kids and theater 2 kids, which I don't really teach too much of them, but the advanced kids, I don't do it. They see through my bull. But but theater 1, they get up there and they get comfortable.
Yeah.
Because I let them write it. I don't tell them I let them decide who they are, what they want to call themselves, and then they start like saying it, and they don't have to memorize it, which I should make them. I had one kid this year, leave the room. He walked in. The way my room is set up, I've got a vestibule kind of thing. So he went into the vestibule. He kind of like did his little Goldberg-esque gimmick. He didn't hit his head and given him himself a concussion on the door or anything. But he walked out and everybody's like, "What's going on?" I kind of knew. I kind of figured out real quick. Oh, he's going out there to kind of like make an entrance, right?
Right.
And that's exactly what he did. He came in. He busted through the door. He opened it louder than necessary, and then the door, which has a spring on it, catches itself. He tried as hard as he could to slam it, which it was kind of sad because the spring won, but still And then he comes in, he's like, "Hey," and just cuts this promo.
Right.
And I don't know how much of it was memorized or how much of it was improvised.
Yeah.
But he just cuts his promo, and he's one of my more charismatic kids in that class.
Yeah.
But still, it was just like it gave everybody permission to kind of do that, And I was like, this is what theater's about. We're joking around that it's wrestling, but that's what theater 1's about, giving those kids permission to do whatever it is they want in the limitations of high school education.
Right. Well, because we've become so insular, we've become so in our own head.
Yeah.
And that's an awkward time in general, right?
Yeah.
You've got freshman students who are just coming out of that awkward 13-year-old stage and now trying to make a life where they've got 16, 17, 18-year-olds who have kind of found their lane.
Yep.
And you've got these 14-year-old kids who don't really know or don't know that don't know that it's okay to just be themselves. And it's really cool that wrestling or theater or whatever creative outlet they have gives them, like you said, gives them the permission to just be. One thing that would be really cool, and I don't know if you feel comfortable taking it that far, but like picking up an actual title belt and your best promo gets to walk around with the title belt.
So we do this with improv.
Okay.
Or not improv, we do a stand-up comedy night. And the winner of stand-up comedy night, as voted on by the fans and the audience, we have a title belt that we change the name on.
That's so cool.
And by change the name, I don't mean we do the plates.
Right.
I literally take tape and I tape over and I just write their name. But it sits with our very low-level winning UIL one-act play plaques because we've never really made it that far. But it sits in there with that. It sits in there with our Baber Awards, which is our district's version of like the Gatsma or the Patty Granvilles or stuff like that. But it sits in there with that. So like as you're walking by, it's like, oh, look at all these. Why is there a title belt? And then, and it creates conversation. But it's, but yeah, we have one sitting in there. It's the universal title,
Okay,
so it's not a
belt,
real title.
right.
I really kind of want to get a 10-pound of gold title, NWA or something.
Those are such cool belts.
Or that old WCW, that fat NWO looking, the one that they spray painted. That title belt, which is one of my favorite. But, but it's fun. And then at the end of that comedy night, it's like they get to hold up the title. They're like, "Yeah, I'm the champion," and we rip off the piece of tape to put their tape on there. And
I mean, I'll be honest, if I were a kid in that class or like a kid doing that, I don't even care. I would walk around with that thing because it's just like
I could make that happen.
I would absolutely buy a title belt and walk around
because those little kid replica ones are like $20-$25.
Yeah.
So they're not too.
It's such a cool thing though, and like I really enjoy. I enjoy wrestling primarily because of the storytelling, right? We talked about it, and you see these, and that's the problem I've had with WWE lately. You see these stories that
It's rushed.
it's rushed, and then some of them you never get a payoff.
Yeah.
And this is a problem I have with current WWE writing, is this like the heels, by nature, a heel needs to be a little more clever, or you're going to have like a monster heel similar to what Undertaker was for a little while, or what Kane was for a little while, who just destroys everything.
Yeah.
Or Lesnar now. But what I don't like about the current sort of writing of WWE is you have these faces or your heroes just literally get punked every time they either step in the ring or they're tricked super easily. And I get you want that big payoff where your face eventually wins, but you don't have to make them look stupid at every turn.
Yeah.
And so that's a big problem I have now. I don't know where I was going to go with that.
Well, the payoff element. I mean, yeah, I would say there are like maybe two storylines right now that you're kind of holding on to that you hope there's a payoff. And again, I don't know when this is going to drop. Maybe the payoff's going to be at Hell in a Cell, but the Shane McMahon, Kevin Owens.
That should have been done like 5 months ago.
Sure, but it's they're doing something with it. I mean, I don't mind watching Kevin Owens. He's very good at what he does. If it was like Shane McMahon versus, I don't know, some lesser face, Bailey. No, I'm just kidding. That would be weird. But and then the Daniel Bryan, Eric Rowan, Luke Harper, Roman Reigns kind of weird thing because Sam Roberts, who's like the wrestling podcast to listen to, has his theory about that Daniel Bryan is still in on the plan and he's making a sacrifice and so why does he keep getting beat up? It's because he's being a sacrificial lamb to the bigger picture, and he's still going to be a heel and all this stuff. And I just find that to be interesting, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But
have you followed any of the Fiend stuff?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so I do want to ask you about that.
That one. But see, that one doesn't. So the Fiend itself is his own story.
Yes.
Having a feud with another wrestler has not really, the story element of that really has not started. He's doing this whole world title or universal title thing. But once that's over, where does he go next? It's another wrestler. So there's no big story with two people. It's what's going to happen with just the Fiend as a character.
Right.
You just hope it doesn't fail because it's just so good right now.
Right, and it's...
They had a commercial on... Sorry, they had a...
Yeah, no, fine.
Like, there was like a normal... In the middle of a TV show I was watching on USA, what was I don't even remember what I was watching. And they had the Funhouse... It was a commercial with the Funhouse and Bray Wyatt selling Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
I was like, this is just a regular old commercial.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff is crazy.
So I don't know if you happen to catch the title card for like as they lead into Raw, the WWE, the Then Now Forever thing.
Yeah.
They're actually having the sort of Fiend character, like just through the episode, just screw with the production and like make random appearances and
awkward endings to like having that Funhouse play for a good 90 seconds and you're just sitting there like, what's going on?
And then that starts to distort and then and so that, however, is, I think, Bray Wyatt, the character, or whoever, I forget his name in real life.
Rotunda. It's not Mike Rotunda, that's his dad.
Yeah.
But anyway. Yeah.
But the just
IRS's
letting him take the character where he needed to.
They've given him the Jericho treatment, I think. They've let him, he's gained their trust. They've given him that treatment anyway. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. He has the freedom to, and he's got the backing of like, I think Bruce Pritchard's like lead producer on his stuff, and so Pritchard's got Vince's ear, so basically he can do whatever he needs to get his stuff over. But it's nice to see in what's become, a lot of sort of generic muscle man characters that you see in wrestle, guys who can really go and wrestle, but not a lot of character depth. This one guy who has just literally turned everything on its head, and at this point I feel like Vince thought it was just a vanity project for Bray. It's like, you just go do it. It's not. We'll have fun with it. And then he's
character.
And then and just kind of let him do his thing. But like, it's starting to make him money now.
Yeah.
And now he's.
Well, they're selling like Funhouse packages or something like that online, and they sold out faster than any product in the history of WWE. I don't know how many they made. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you could make 2 and sell both and say you sold them out faster. You
Right.
know, but I have a feeling they make quite a few. Even I looked up to try to get one. He's gone kind of old school, and it's the same with like, and it's unfortunate because he got injured, but like Tommaso Ciampa,
Yeah.
like you know and where Dolph Ziggler was probably a year ago when he was a heel and came out to no music and nothing.
See,
and
that was super cool. I enjoyed
like,
that.
man, I wanted that to carry on because I
Yeah.
was like, this is different. This is, and I get it though. Again, I keep harping on it. It's been 32 minutes now, but I get the reason as a sales, as a company that's trying to cater to a younger audience as well, why you have to have the flashy LED entrance and the fun music, and because his music is kind of like upbeat and fun, why you have to have that. The Fiend character and Tommaso's kind of heel character, I don't know where he's going to be when he comes back, but
Right.
my daughter is afraid of the Fiend in an old school way, though.
Yeah.
She knows he's not real, you know. So there's a little bit of that with the kids, and the Funhouse is obviously like very Pee Wee Herman-esque kind of thing, but that character's made for us, made for adults.
Yeah.
The fact that he comes out with a severed version of his own head,
As his lantern. That's such a cool
it's
piece, though.
insane, and like it's so cool. Have you been to a live event recently or within the past
no,
couple
the last
years?
one I went to
Okay.
was in like 09, I think.
Okay, see, so the thing about the live events, because now I go with Jay Thomas all the time. We're dating actually, so I hope he doesn't break up with me after this. But and we're going to Royal Rumble Minute Maid. We got ringside
right on.
seats. Don't tell my wife, but she does not listen to this podcast, so that's
good.
Even though she's a theater teacher, whatever. We went, and what kind of ruins the live event element of things is that you can see everything. There's no, like, even when they black out, quote unquote, and so let's say like an Ember Moon who does her entrance from the ramp, you know, on TV, you don't ever see her walk out onto the ramp, but in the real thing, Ember Moon's never going to surprise anybody in a live crowd because she walks out on the ramp. You
Right.
know?
Well, like Ray used to pop out of the
So
out of the
you
stage.
see them make that change, and you know, oh, Rey Mysterio is about to come out, or even like not Bray Wyatt, Finn Balor's entrance.
Oh, when he's
they come
the-
out and not even when they change the smoke, they come out and change a piece of the stage that creates all that low-lying fog relatively quickly, right? You know, which we all wish we had in our theaters, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, but so you know the surprise is not there as much. Now, speaking of live events, I took my daughter to one. It was in Houston. It was a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And that I'm pretty sure that changed her life. Like she had never seen people on TV in person.
Right.
And although we weren't in the nosebleeds, they weren't selling nosebleeds, but we were pretty high up.
Yeah.
And it was a last minute thing. But she was like, I've watched these people on TV. I know these people are on TV, Daddy. These people. I was like, that's right, they are.
Yeah.
Like, and they're here right now. And it just changed her, man. It's like, and you know,
Isn't it cool to watch them watch that grab them though?
dude, I was
Like,
crying.
Yeah.
Like you know, because it's there's an element of me that's like, it's my little girl that's getting into this. So I've kind of won as a parent because she likes what Daddy likes.
Yeah.
If I had a son, I don't know, I might feel different because I'd be like, well, the expectation is that, yes, they will embrace what Daddy likes because that's just kind of the natural way of humanity. But, and that's changing now, especially with this women's revolution, which is not even a thing anymore because it's done. I mean, now women are just a part of the...
Well, I mean, when you have Becky, Ronda, and Charlotte.
Yeah, but I'm
you know,
saying like
headline WrestleMania.
eventually we're not still in an American revolution.
Yeah.
You know, eventually it
totally.
ends. But I think that element of things, the lighting changed in here. That element of things. Oh, they turned off their psych.
Oh, I guess I got
Has really just kind of hit me, man. It was cool. It was cool to watch.
Yeah.
Do you remember when the first time that you went to a live event?
I've actually, believe it or not, I've actually only been to the one.
Okay.
I've only been to the one, and I remember I was in college when I went, and so when we went, we were actually at a KCACTF conference in Amarillo, and that same day there happened to be a live event.
That's funny.
And we're like, you know what? Screw it, we'll just go. We had the night free. We didn't want to see the show that night, so we just hopped in my truck and we went to the live event. And I remember, we're walking through, and we got to see Kofi Kingston wrestle. I had never seen him before because I had gotten away from wrestling up to that point.
Right.
And I would say
that was back when he was like Jamaican.
Yeah. He's like, well, he's actually, I think he's Ghanaian.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, that's a whole other thing. But it's the main event was Big Show and John Cena.
Yeah.
And I was with, two of my best friends, and, we're, I think 21, 22 years old at the time. And Show walks out, and everyone's booing him because he's the heel for this match. When isn't he the heel for the match? And then things go dark, and then Cena's music hit, and you couldn't even help it. Like, I couldn't help it.
Yeah.
Like, you just had to pop out of the seat. And it's this crazy, like, it's just this crazy feeling of, for as much as wrestling is like, this sort of spectacle thing, it is very immersive. It pulls you in because these characters are, when it's done right, these characters are just pull you in, and you have to be involved. You have to want to be a part of it. You can't really walk away from that when you're there.
What is the equivalent of that in theater?
Oh, man.
Because so we were talking earlier now, and it feels like we've been talking for hours and we haven't. But you just do that to me.
Oh,
but
happy to.
You're welcome. But we were talking about how spectacle kind of covers up story now, and I was trying to jog my mind of musicals that have the story before the spectacle, and the obvious one is Hamilton.
Yeah.
That's an easy one to go to. But even, one that mixes the two together that I think does it well is like Wicked. Wicked does a good job of giving you everything you want to visually see and hear, the auditory.
There's a reason it's such a critical success, too.
Yeah, it gives you that story, I would love to hear what you think is a show, because I've got a couple answers, but I don't want to persuade you, is a show or shows that either A, have the flash and trash and no story, or have the story but very little flash and trash.
Ooh. I think with the way that we approach theater now, specifically what we do, I think it's hard to. I think. Okay, so when I was in high school, we did a bare stage show. Super simple. Ended up carrying that to state. This was before LEDs LEDs were a thing.
What show was that?
Mariner.
Okay.
And so,
they love whoever's cheering in the background. Loves the Mariner.
Yeah, loves Mariner. But I don't think unless you have this beautifully told story. Actually, no. I don't. I think even now, even if you have this beautiful story, I think with just the story alone, I think you could get to say area, region, and one act play. But I think but you're going to run into shows that have that plus the spectacle. I think you have to have either the greatest. You have to have a good balance. But if you're going to go the route of we're just going to tell a story, we're not going to worry about LEDs. Right. It's just going to be lights up, lights down on this beautifully told story. You're not going to be as successful as I think you might, unless you have literally the greatest actors that the state of Texas has ever seen.
Sure.
Because it's hard now, because everyone now, because like accessibility now for what LED, like what technology is for people, and I'm doing a session on that this week, should anyone care to see it. This is going to come out long after. This is going to come out long after. Forget that I even said that. But
well, you might do it at Thespians. I don't know.
Yeah. But I guess the point is that where we sit now, I think it's like a pendulum swing, right? We're swinging super hard into the necessity of spectacle.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see when it's going to swing back. As to shows where you've got just the ability to tell a great story, I think, or just where you just need a great story, things like Death of a Salesman would be a really good example.
Sure.
A lot of older Arthur Miller stuff would probably be where I would go. Tennessee Williams, same thing.
Yeah.
Old Dead White Guys.
Well, and there's some of those Spanish stories too that have been translated. They do the same thing. Chekhov, who's I guess an old dead white guy, but he's
An
not
old dead
American.
Russian white guy.
Yeah.
So it's a little different.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know that in the environment in which we do theater, that there's a lot of to be successful in one act. And I'm speaking of one specific thing, but to be successful in one act, I don't know that there's a lot of shows that you can do that don't need to have some element of spectacle in them to have the sort of, advancing success that it's expected of us, quite frankly.
Right.
I wish it were different. And like I said, I'm curious to see if the pendulum ever does swing back hard the other way. I don't think it will, because with technology getting as cheap as it is now, and I can pick up LEDs for a couple $100.
So, but now you're in a place where you get to watch them all. Since you're not in a school directing, that kind of thing. Since you're at the PAC, you get to see a lot. I think you get to see a lot more, right?
Yeah, we get to host contests, and I get to just go and experience.
And even if you're not watching the shows, you're kind of seeing what people are bringing in and all that kind of stuff. So, is there something that and you don't need to name them. You can if you want, but why not? Controversy create. Yeah. Is there a show or are there a couple shows that you've seen get to higher levels that you were like, all this is flash and trash. All this is a spectacle.
You
can name the show, maybe, or not even, not the school.
I will hold. I will hold.
It was
off
Mandy,
on naming.
Wasn't it? It was Mandy Tapia.
Mandy Tapia, yeah. Just all
flash,
all flash and trash. No.
Yeah.
But no.
Little flash, a lot of trash. Yeah. Anyway,
I'll stop there because she's gonna track me down and kick my ass. But I think. Even one of the shows that came through my area, through my PAC at area, did advance all the way to state. And I won't say that it was all flash, because it was a good show. But the way that the script was written, the flash was absolutely necessary for it to be successful.
Okay.
And so, there was at least two shows the shows that came out of my area went to state that we held, right? So they were very spectacle driven, and these are fantastic directors, right? And they were able to have that balance. But if, as an example, that contest day, I have hallways that run all the way around the auditorium, and I had I think like 10 by 12 squares taped out for each school.
There's scenery and stuff. Yeah.
Every single one of them far exceeded the space. And I'm not saying that because I was upset. I knew it was going to happen, but I needed to say, this is what I have. If we need to adapt, we'll adapt.
Yeah.
But I had two shows going all the way down the hall up to the front, and this is like a 70-foot hallway.
Right.
Like, I had two shows running from the backstage area all the way to the front, right by that door that goes out into our lobby.
Right.
And so, you've got people walking in. Like we had three Penske trucks pull up into the back, and you see this giant, easily $20,000 projector come off of one truck.
Right.
The next truck that comes through, you see 2 or 3 lighting trees with fixtures that I know are not cheap.
Yeah.
And then you see, the third Penske truck comes in, and these beautiful, expensive costumes coming through the door.
Yeah.
And that, and it's kind of mind-boggling, right? Because you see these, and it was a discussion I've had with other directors. It's like, who come from, because my school district is not like, it's a 5A, but we don't have the money that a lot of these larger 5As do. Forget the 6As.
Yeah.
And you look at stuff like that and you wonder, how am I supposed to compete with that?
Yep.
And the argument would be, if I can just tell a good story, I can compete. But past a certain point, everybody can tell a good story.
Right.
And so, which I think is a larger discussion that I don't have an answer to, but a larger discussion for one act as an institution.
Yeah.
Where do we find the balance?
Yeah.
Because I can't look at schools that have a whole bunch of, like, I couldn't look at, I'm going to use it as an example, but I can't look at Highland Park. I can't look at, Friendswood, these huge schools who have these massive budgets and say, you don't get to spend everything to your best ability.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
By the same token, I can't look at a small 5A, a Title I, and say to them, you need to spend more money to compete, because maybe they don't have it.
Right.
And it's hard to balance that discrepancy,
Yeah.
right? And there's no. The unfortunate thing is I don't think there is a good answer.
Right. Well, and that's not the real world. I mean, you don't go to a Broadway house and say, "Hey, you can only spend $10, even though you've got $10 million." You know,
Yeah.
like you just can't do that. But, what's the answer? I think that's always been kind of the argument. Is we got to figure out some way to balance this out. But that's also the argument that we've had with, at least down in Houston, with the Tommy Tune Awards.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the financial element is what separates. Again, Friendswood from, and I talked to Julio Morales earlier, a Sharpstown, you know?
Yeah.
He's doing amazing things there. The shows that he's putting on are beautiful and great, and
Yeah.
the resources that they have, there's nobody better, but he still doesn't have $20,000 to spend on their fall play.
Yeah.
But you don't go to that school that has $20,000 and say you can't spend it. Like, why not? You know,
Yeah.
so
if you have the resources, use them.
yeah, use them, and
It's a different
shouldn't
different
be viewed
kind
as
of
a
unfairness.
punishment. But then how do you balance that? So
Yeah.
let's wrap up, because I'm sure you want to go to some LED workshop or some how to light some stuff on fire or something like that. But
You know, if somebody did a pyro workshop, I would absolutely.
so there
do
was a
that.
pyro workshop years ago at Big Thespians, at International Thespians.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure. I don't know who complained. It was me, but I don't know who complained. This gentleman led a workshop. It was a very good workshop, and I learned quite a bit from it. Like he was very knowledgeable. The problem is he came from Ohio.
Right.
The laws in Ohio are much different regarding pyrotechnics compared to Texas,
Yeah.
compared to freaking Kentucky, which is just south of them. You know, like he never acknowledged that. He never once said, there was no disclaimer that said, hey, and I knew this being a technician, but if you're coming in there as like, hey, we're just doing Wizard of Oz this year and I want my witch's broom to light on fire,
Yeah.
and I just need to know how to do that. Well, he never once said, check your laws, check what's legal
Yeah,
in your state,
that's
what's
super
legal
important.
even in your county, your city. And so I made a comment, a complaint, I shouldn't say a complaint, that's harsh, but I just made a comment to some of the powers that be, like, hey, these pyro ones are great, it's good, but they need to have some sort of disclaimer, because you can get in a whole lot of trouble if you just go out there and light a broom on fire and say, Dorothy, you're going
I'd
to die.
love to see your fire marshal approve
Yeah,
that.
right? So that's my story about why there's maybe not a pyrotechnics workshop. I don't know about TTA, but as far as thespians, that's probably not.
You know,
It'd be useful though.
Yeah, I mean, I would love. Well, and so from what I remember in Texas, you actually have to apprentice under a pyrotechnician.
Yes.
For a long time
Yes.
before you even get close to getting your pyrotechnician.
Well, you have to do that now as an electrician too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
At least in Texas again.
But I actually have a couple of friends who do pyro
Yeah.
in Texas and actually travel nationwide.
Putting an eyeglass up against an ant is not considered pyrotechnics.
No, these are guys like one
they do
of the
big
guys,
spyglasses.
One of the guys just did. I think he just did Rock in Rio.
Okay.
And so he was out there. Another friend of mine just did a bunch of stuff at 360 Amphitheater in Austin.
Okay.
So they're all over the place. But I mean, they flat out said, it's like, it took me years to even get to where
Sure.
I'm at right now, because it's such a small community of people,
Yeah.
and they don't want someone who's going to come in and take money out of their pocket.
Yeah. It's like the voice acting community, a bunch of jerks.
I've actually wanted to try to break into that. Have you tried? Have you done any voice acting? Have
Why
you thought about
why
doing
do you think
it?
these two mics are sitting here? Yes, I have done a little bit of work as a voiceover,
Okay.
not as a character actor. And I
Mhm.
know right now it's raspy because I've just been talking for
I
the
just
past 3 days.
assumed that this was
It's just a sexy chocolate
just,
voice.
the sexy Blake, as it were.
No, it's not. But I have done some, and I even met with, and I won't name who it is because I like him, but he did me wrong. I met with a very popular local voice-over guy in Houston who, great guy, awesome guy, met with me for lunch. This was years ago.
Yeah.
And then when I said, yeah, I'm really trying to break in, I'd purchased microphones, these nice microphones. I have
Yeah.
one at home. I was like, yeah, so like, who do I get a hold of? He was like, well, it's a really tight knit community, and wouldn't give me the answer.
Right.
And so I've got two friends actually, one closer than the other, that are in the business, and still won't give me an answer because they're very protective of it.
Yeah.
You have to be at the right place at the right time with that business, with pyrotechnics, with fight choreography. Fight choreography is kind
That's
of
a very tight
part of the
one.
pun, but cutthroat kind of. Those guys don't mess with anybody. I talked to A. Truss Brown, who's
Yeah.
at College of the Mainland, and he's a licensed fight choreographer, and he's starting a company for fight choreography, and he's advocating to teach more students and kids how to become fight choreographers. So he's one of the few though that's saying, "Come take my jobs." Like, there plenty to be.
Yeah, I mean,
out there.
I've wanted to pull the whole wrestling aspect back in. I've wanted to get my my SPTs so I can become a certified stage combatant or actor combatant, and then become a certified teacher. But those things don't get offered a whole lot.
You know who's doing stuntman work now?
Who's that?
Big, like one of the top ones in Hollywood, Chavo Guerrero.
So
he does Glow.
Yeah, he does all the stuff for Glow.
But that's how he got into Glow. He had started doing stuntman work.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, you're already in the business in LA doing this stuff. But yeah, he's like a huge stuntman guy now, and he's teaching stuntmen and being a stuntman.
Yeah.
And then, of course, doing the Glow thing, which I think is more of his bread and butter.
Yeah.
They have one more season, by the way. But
I'm disappointed. It's a good show. I haven't watched season 3. I know I need to.
It's good. It's probably the best season, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
So, all right, man. Yeah, watch Glow.
Minor